The Forbidden History of the Holocaust. The stories erased from textbooks. Prologue. A silence too loud. The Holocaust is one of the most documented atrocities in human history. Over 6 million Jews were murdered by the Nazi regime between 1941 and 1945, alongside millions of others deemed undesirable by the Third Reich. Roma, disabled people, Slavs, LGBTQ individuals, political dissidents, and countless civilians caught in the sweep of hatred and genocide. But even as history books recount the horrors of Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Dachau, much remains untold, suppressed, forgotten, or deliberately ignored. This is the story of what's been left out of the mainstream narrative. The betrayals, the resistance, the overlooked victims, and the post-war silences that continue to haunt our understanding of the past. Chapter 1. The Pre-War Years, Seeds of Erasure. Textbooks often begin with Kristallnacht in 1938, but the foundation for the Holocaust was laid decades earlier. Racial, science, and eugenics. Long before Hitler rose to power, anti-Semitic pseudoscience had gained popularity across Europe, and even in America. The Nazis borrowed heavily from U.S. eugenics programs, including forced sterilization laws that targeted the disabled and feeble-minded. The forgotten victims of 1933 to 1939. Early victims included communists, Jehovah's Witnesses, gay men, and German Jews stripped of rights under the Nuremberg laws. Many were forced into exile, yet the world largely shut its doors, most infamously at the Evian Conference, where 32 nations, including the U.S., refused to increase Jewish immigration quotas. The world saw what was coming.
And did nothing.
Chapter 2. Camps Beyond Auschwitz. When most people think of the Holocaust, they think of Auschwitz. But it was only one piece of a vast killing machine. The Action Reinhard camps. Sobibor, Belzec, and Treblinka were pure death camps. No barracks, no long-term prisoners, only gas chambers and mass graves. Over 1.5 million were murdered in these three alone. Concentration camps in France, Italy, and North Africa. Vichy France collaborated with the Nazis, running internment camps such as Drancy. Italy detained Jews in camps like Ferramonte di Tarsia, often erasing them from national memory. The Roma Holocaust. Paragmos often left out of textbooks entirely. An estimated 500,000 Roma people were exterminated by the Nazis. Their persecution began even earlier than that of the Jews. Chapter 3. The resistance that textbooks rarely mention. Popular histories focus on liberation from the West, American and British troops marching through concentration camps. But resistance came from within and across the continent. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, 1943. Young Jewish fighters, armed with pistols and homemade bombs, held off Nazi forces for nearly a month. They fought not to survive, but to die with dignity. The partisans. In the forests of Eastern Europe, thousands of Jews fled to form guerrilla groups. They sabotaged trains, assassinated Nazi officials, and rescued fellow Jews from convoys bound for death camps. Righteous among the nations. Though some textbooks mention Oskar Schindler or Raoul Wallenberg, tens of thousands of unsung heroes across Europe, farmers, nuns, diplomats, risked everything to save lives. Many were persecuted after the war for their resistance. Chapter 4. The Holocaust by Bullets. Before the gas chambers, there were guns. In 1941, Nazi Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads, followed the Wehrmacht into Eastern Europe. Their mission: mass shootings of Jews, Roma, and political enemies. In places like Babi Yar, Ukraine, over 33,000 people were killed in just 2 days. These killings were often public. Neighbors watched or helped. Photographic evidence exists, but is rarely shown due to its graphic nature. Today, many of these sites remain unmarked or deliberately neglected. This Holocaust by bullets accounted for over 1.5 million deaths, yet is often relegated to footnotes. Chapter 5. The Silence After Liberation. The war ended in 1945, but the silence began. Survivor testimonies were ignored. Many Holocaust survivors who fled to the West were not welcomed with compassion. Some were told to move on, or discouraged from sharing their stories for fear of stirring up trouble. Nazi scientists rehired. Under Operation Paperclip, the US secretly brought Nazi scientists, including those involved in human experimentation, into NASA and defense programs. Statelessness and exile. Hundreds of thousands of Jewish survivors remained in displaced persons camps for years, with no homeland to return to. Anti-Semitism remained rampant in Poland, Hungary, and other nations even after the camps were opened. German companies profited. Major corporations, Bayer, Siemens, Volkswagen, IG Farben, used slave labor from concentration camps. Few were held accountable. Chapter 6: Holocaust Denial and the Fight for Memory. Despite overwhelming evidence, Holocaust denial persists and has gained traction in some parts of the world. In the 1980s and 1990s, pseudo-historians tried to claim the gas chambers were hoaxes. In parts of Eastern Europe, local collaboration has been erased from textbooks. Some governments have tried to criminalize references to their complicity, such as Poland's 2018 law banning suggestions of Polish guilt. Survivors and historians have fought back, compiling archives, producing testimony, and demanding accurate representation in education. Still, in many classrooms, entire chapters of Holocaust history remain missing, from the Roma genocide to LGBTQ persecution to resistance stories led by women. Epilogue: Memory as Resistance. The Holocaust was not just a crime against the Jewish people. It was a warning to humanity, a mirror of what happens when hate is weaponized by the state, when silence becomes policy, and when truth is rewritten for convenience. The erased stories, the forbidden histories, are more than facts. They are acts of resistance against forgetting. Every name remembered, every silenced voice resurrected, is a step toward justice. Because never again must begin with never forget, even the parts they didn't want us to know.